It's an English accent.
Mesechta Menochos, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. We're starting from Yud Beis Amud Beis, the Mishnah. It's around 15 lines on the bottom. Says the Mishnah, one who makes a kmitza and he has the intention lechel kachatzi zayis to eat a half of the zayis after the time, which is pigul. We know what pigul is. You have the wrong thought. The thought there's only a limited time that you can eat the mincha. And he had the intention to eat it next week as a cake in the bar mitzvah. No good. But here he did it already in a half a zayis. So he had in mind to eat a half a zayis of the mincha after the time. And also there's a part that's burnt on the mizbeach. Which part is burnt on the mizbeach? This the fistful. So he said half of kazayis is going to be. He wants to burn it after the time. So together they become zayis. You have to have a whole zayis. So he says.
He wants to, or he forgot it and it happened.
No, his intention was. How did he do it? He said, in order to be pigul, you need a full kazayis. But he did it. He did a half a zayis of pigul
So
one way.
Pigul is allowed. You're allowed to
No,
take
pigul. If you eat something that's pigul, you chayiv kares. But pigul only is chal, only on something that's a full kazayis. So he had in mind to eat half of the shirayim after the kmitza. The shirayim you could eat a half of it, a half of kazayis to eat it after the time allotted for it. And then the other half of the zayis of the kmitza, which has to be burnt, he had in mind to burn it after its time. So we want to know if you can combine the two half of zayis and zaysim to a zayis. So he says no, one is for the eating for the people and one is for the burning of the mizbeach. So it's not mitzdarfis. Lech kachatzi zayis, laka kachatzi zayis, kosher. It's not going to become pigul. Shein achila v'haktar mitzdarfis. Because the eating part, which is the half of zayis, and the burning part, which is the half of zayis, we cannot combine them together. It says the time the whole reason why the Mishnah says it's kosher because the lechel ulahakter, because there was two different categories. One was half of zayis went for eating after its time, and one half of zayis went for burning on the mizbeach. It's two different categories, so you can't combine them. Lechel. How about he had in mind to eat a half of the leftover from the mincha, which he's allowed to eat, and lechel, I eat a half of the zayis of the kmitza, which he wasn't allowed to eat it, but he was going to make it. He was going to eat it together with the other half of the mincha. So, which is a derech daka lechel. It's something that it's not the derech to eat it because from the kmitza all of it has to be burnt on the mizbeach. So mitzdarif. So it's not mashma from the Mishnah that in such a case you would combine it to make it into pigul. That you how can you say that? We learned the ratio. If he had in mind lechel derech daka lechel ulahakta derech daka lahakel lahakter. So he says, "Davish shadaka lechel eat." Only if it's something that's the derech to eat, then you could combine. Then you can do. Then it becomes pigul. But if you had in mind of machshavas pigul, which means you had in mind after a lot of time that one is allowed to eat the mincha, but it was she'in daka lechel. It was on something that he wasn't allowed to eat anyway, like the kmitza that's supposed to go on the mizbeach. So how do we?
It doesn't matter because it's chayav kares anyways for eating it.
If he eats from the kmitza, I don't know. You might be right. That I don't know. So it says who says that you can combine a half a zayis of shirayim, the part that you're allowed to eat, together with a half a zayis of the kmitza, which you're not allowed to eat. How do you know you can combine it to a kazayis? And I don't think it would be chayav kares just for half a zayis of the kmitza. So it's who's the Tana that permits it, that would combine and say that it would be considered as a full zayis? Rabbi Lezer, it's Rabbi Lezer. The Amar that Rabbi Lezer said, that you could combine. Somebody can have a thought for something that belongs under mizbeach together with something that he's allowed to eat, that it should become pigul, meaning chutz lizmanei, uma'achilus mizbeach la'achilus adam, or you can add from the kmitza, which is not the derech for a person to eat, to achilas adam, to the achilah of a person. You understand? The first way was he could add something for the achilas adam, which is normally a person.
This is something that's good. No.
He wants to eat it after a lot. He wants to burn a full kazayis after a lot of time.
Why?
So how's he going to do it?
It's innocent.
Yeah, but that's what he wants to do. He has in mind that. So how did he combine it to a kazayis? He took part of the part of the of mincha that he was allowed to eat for himself.
Right.
And he says, I'm going to combine it with the achila zeva, with the part that belongs on the mizbeach, to make it to kizayis. Or the reverse. He says, I'm going to take the part that really is supposed to go to the mizbeach, I'm going to combine it with the food that I'm allowed to eat after the time. So, the Tanan that we learned in the Mishnah, kosher. If somebody, in the Mishnah we learned Beferish on Yud Zayin, somebody makes a kmitza with the intention to eat it after it's a lot of time or outside its place, something that's not fit to eat like the kmitza, or so too if he did a kmitza on a mincha with the intention to eat it outside the zman, it was something that wasn't the derech to burn. It's like the shirayim is meant for him to eat. Kosher, in such a case, it's kosher that it's not going to be combined, and it's going to be kosher. It's not going to be pigul.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's not going to become pigul. You don't combine it. Well, as I said, no, it's paisel. It becomes pasul. Even though if we were talking about something that's not the derech to eat, he wanted to combine something of which is not the derech to eat with something that's the derech to eat.
Right.
He wanted to, part of the kmitza together with the shirayim. He wanted to do it, or the reverse. He wanted to burn part of the shirayim together with the kmitza on the mizbeach. So the Tanakama says you can't combine it. Rabbi Lezer says you could, and it becomes possible. Abaya ma filotema. Abaya says you can even say it's Rabbanan. Now, Mishnah follows Rabbanan. It doesn't have to be Rabbi Lezer who allows to combine even something that's not the derech to eat. It says even according to Rabbanan who say that a machshava only helps by something that is the derech to eat. He says lo yitema. He says don't say the diuk halecha v'lecho that he had in mind to eat a chatzi zayis of shirayim, which is the derech to eat, together with a chatzi zayis of kometz, which is davar shein dak lecho. Allah Ema said the diuk that it's going to be good. It's going to become. I'm sorry, that it's going to be combined to become pigul. Allah Ema said the diuk was halechel. He had in mind 2 zaysim that you're allowed from the shirayim that you're allowed to eat, but a half a zayis he had in mind to eat it after a lot of time, and the other half a zayis he had in mind to eat it outside the perimeters that you're allowed to eat it. So it's 2 different categories.
Right.
So that's what he wanted to tell us. But it was a davar shadak lecho. So Michael Mashwan says, what does he come to teach us in such a case that if he had in mind a half a zayis, he had in mind for chutz l'zman, and a half a zayis he had in mind for chutz l'mkaimai, he says, this is something that we learned openly in the Mishnah. If somebody had in mind lachol k'zayis b'chutz, k'zayis l'macha, he had in mind one k'zayis to eat it outside the perimeters, and one kizayis he had in mind to eat it the next day, kizayis l'macha or kizayis l'chutz, or the reverse, where you had the first kizayis he had in mind that is to eat it after the zman, and another kizayis he had in mind outside the perimeters, or kachatzi zayis b'chutz, kachatzi zayis l'macha. Then the second case was a half a zayis outside the perimeters, a half a zayis after the allotted time, and kachatzi zayis l'macha, or the reverse, so he had in mind a half a zayis the next day, ukachatzi zayis b'chutz outside the perimeters. Puzzle, it's possible by kaddish, and it's not going to be. There's no chiva kaddish. So we have a befeidish Mishnah. So what do we need in the dik of this Mishnah? Why did the Mishnah here have to teach us the same din again? That the machshava, v'achila, v'haktara do not combine. It's extra. It says you want to eat lecha v'lechel davar shein daker. If it's lecha v'lechel davar shein daker lechel, kamashma the mitzvah. That if it's come to teach us that he had the intention to combine a half a zayis of something that you could eat of shirayim together with a half a zayis of kmitza, which is not the derech to eat, that these 2 machshavis combine to kizayis the possible carbon. He says, that I already learned it out from the previous Mishnah that about these machshavis do not allow to become combined if it's something that's not the derech to eat. And if he's come to teach us about that he had machshava to eat after the zman, right? Yeah. Together with the machshava of burning the kmitza after it's zman, So he says, "Mediyuk dereisha Shabbat mina." This I can learn out from the diuk of the previous Mishnah that the machshava of two different categories do not combine. David, which is not oimed la'achila, right? So he says,
Which is a kula, right? That's a leniency, no?
he says, "Mediyuk dereisha Shabbat mina." How did he learn out about which case? The case of achila, that it should be mitzvah to the machshava of aktar to passel the carbon. There's no chiddush. How do you learn it out? And the Mishnah said that if he had a machshava to eat davar she'ein achila, he had the machshava to eat something that's not fit to eat, like the kemitza, if there's a lot of time, it's not a machshavas psul. Part of that is that he had in mind to eat a half a zay shirayim, which is the derech to eat, together with another half a zayis from the kemitza, which is not the derech to eat. So he said these two machshavas do not combine to pasal a mincha. Since we already learned this, that even though both machshavas were achila, right? Yeah. They're both in the category of eating. Nevertheless, we said that they don't combine. So to make a kalachayim, the hashta, when they're both in the category of eating, just one chatzizayis was of something that is not the derech to eat, was from the kemitza part. The second half of the zayis was from the shirayim part. Nevertheless, he said you won't combine, that it should become pigul. So he says, now you're talking about two complete different categories, to eat and to burn after a lot of time. Of course it cannot combine.
No.
Huh?
The Gemara says no.
Says the Gemara in. Yes.
Okay,
He says, yeah, you're still needed to teach us about...
Makes logic usually is disputed.
Okay. So he says to eat and to burn, there is more logical to say it should be combined. Why? I would have thought to say, Hasam, where he had in mind to combine achila, which is not the derech to eat, like the kemitza, together with this shirayim.
It's not the right way.
So you had one part of the gufa, one part wasn't the derech to eat. So, I would say he's had in mind something which is not the derech to eat, together with something that's derech to eat. So that's why I would say it doesn't combine.
Proper ways to do it.
Here he did the two proper ways. It's just two different categories. Here, part of the half azayis of the shirayim, he had in mind to eat it after a lot of time. That's the half azayis. The half azayis of the kemitza, it wasn't for achila, was for aktar, which is also the derech for the mizbeach to burn, but it was after a lot of time. I would say they were both machshavas that are fit to go for its thing. The achila shirayim he had in mind to eat it after a lot of time, which is allowed to eat, and the other half azayis which he had in mind to burn on the mizbeach, meaning part of the kemitza, which is the derech, put it on the mizbeach, but he had in mind after a lot of time. Since both machshavas were the normal machshavas, so I would have thought it combines. That it doesn't. We shall return to you, Peri Kol HaMenachos. Says the Mishnah, it's a mincha, somebody who makes a kmitza from a mincha with the intention to eat the remnants, the shirayim, or to burn the kmitza the next day. This is what we learned already before. This is the regular case of pigul. Somebody took a kmitza, and he had it, after he takes the kmitza, it allows him to eat the shirayim. But he had in mind to eat the shirayim for the bar mitzvah, and then 2 weeks from now. That's no good. That's pigul. Or you had in mind, you know what? I took off the kmitza. I'm going to wait. I don't want to burn it today. I want to wait for a nice bonfire. I don't know. Some holiday. I want to make a bigger, like Bahima. It's like no good. So that we learned already before. Rabbi Yossi admits in such a case for sure, pigul and yichayv kares. Because there we're talking about the full kizayis. How about lahakal v'yinos l'macha? What's if we had in mind just to burn? There's two parts. There's the kemitza, you remember, and then there's the spices. They both have to go on the mizbeach. They're separate. Okay? So Rabbi Yossi puzzle. Rabbi Yossi says if he had in mind, even though the kemitza he had in mind the right time, but since there's another component to be matter, the shirayim is burning the levaina, and by the levaina he had in mind after the lot of time. So he says it becomes puzzle, but there's no chiv of kares because it's not the full. There's two components, so he didn't. It's not the full pigul. The full pigul will mean that he had in mind for the Kmitza and the Levina for Ifrit's time. But here he only had in mind for the Levina. Pigul. It is Pigul. Chayim ala karis. Chum say it is Pigul and you are Chayim karis. Chum said, Mashim Hazavach. How is this different than any other carbon? When you shech the behemoth, right?
Yeah.
The blood is coming out, but you have in mind to burn the emurim on the mizbeach, right? So these are two separate things. At the time of the blood, you have in your mind to burn the emurim. Just like deer, it's one, you consider it as one, and it becomes pigul. So here, by the mincha, even though at the time of the kmitza, you had in mind to burn the levina at a later time, it should be one part, and should become pigul. So Amalahen, so Rabbi Yossi answered the Chachamim, hey, there's a difference. By the dam and the basa and the murav is all from the same animal. It's one thing, and therefore one machshava helps for the pass of the whole thing. Levaina mina mincha, the spices. It's not one part of the mincha. The mincha is flour. The levaina spices, two separate things. Why does the Mishnah have to learn that Rabbi Yossi is maida by a mincha that he had a kmitza with the machshava to eat it after to eat the shrine or to burn the shrine after the allotted time? That is, it's people and his chayv kares. We already learned before. So the Gemara is asking, why do we have to learn this regular case of people in the Reisha? We already learned it before that it's people. Because we have to learn the sefer. What does it say in the sefer? If he had in mind while he made the kmitza, he had in mind to burn the spices the next day. Rabbi Yossi says it's possible and there's no chiyuv kares. I would have thought to say the time that Rabbi Yossi mishum the kasabah mechatzi matir. I would have thought the reason why the carbon cannot become pigul because it's not the whole. You're missing a component to be matir the shirayim. So since it's only half of the component cannot become pigul. That's what I would have thought. And I would have thought that even in the Reisha, the first case, what did he have in mind? He made a kmitza on the mincha to eat the shirayim after the allotted time. But it was only the mincha part, not the levina. So maybe I would have said it should not become pigul because he didn't have in mind to burn the levina after the allotted time. Says you want to kamash malam. Therefore comes the Mishnah and teaches us the beha maida. In this case, he's maida, meaning that the carbon will become pigul. Because when he had in mind by the kmitza, right?
Yeah.
He had in mind, even though he had only in mind the kmitza part to burn it after the time, right?
Yeah.
So that what he had in mind was on the kmitza itself. What he took off the kmitza, he had in mind this kmitza, I'm going to be makter it for later. But the sefer, why it's not going to become pigul, because when he did the kmitza, he didn't have in mind about the kmitza part. He had in mind for the levina part, for the spice part, is going to be makter it after the allotted time. Oh, for the spice part, so you can't have in mind while you're doing one thing that's being makter the shirayim.
Right.
Something another part that's going to be makter the shirayim that it's going to be after the time. That doesn't become pigul. Pigul you can do on the thing that you're doing yourself. You did the kmitza, and you said the kmitza I'm going to burn after the allotted time. That becomes pigul. But if you say on the kmitza I'm going to burn the levina, which is a different component after the allotted time, that is not pigul. So he had in mind to burn the spice the next day. Here he's going to say it in more detail. Rabbi Yossi says it's possible, but there's no cutters. I'm going to shlakish.
Well, possible for sure there should be courage, but it's
but he says it's possible. Why? Why is it not pigul? Pigul mean if it's pigul you need chayv kares.
Right.
So he says because you ain't matir mepagos amatir. He says one matir, one component that's matir the shirayim cannot make a second component, which is a second component to be matir shirayim. That part pigul. You can't make it pigul. He says that's a rule. Like here, you have the kmitza and the levina. By doing the kmitza, you cannot. They're both components in being matir the shirayim. He says at the kmitza time, when he does the kmitza, you cannot have in mind that I'm going to burn the levina after a lot of time to make the levina pigul. That you can't. Says the Mechinat Ta'ima. So too, if you want, you can hear it over here, because each component of the matim has its own importance. Each one is mater, is a component of being mater, and therefore the kenis and levana are two separate components, and one cannot be mafagel the other. Remember, in front of the lechem hapanim there are two spoons of keteris. Okay. In order to eat the bread, you have to take those spoons of the keteris and bring it out to the heichal, because it was outside of the heichal to the mizbeach and burn it. That's where they burned the keteris, and then it became mutter to eat the lechem hapanim. So what did he do? So if he was makta one of the spoons, right? He burns one of the spoons, and he says, I have in mind when I'm burning this spoon of keteris that the second spoon, that's for tomorrow. So that machshava won't be mafagel, because each one of these spoons are needed to be mater. Each one of these spoons are needed to be mater. These two components to be mater. The lechem hapanim. Shei mater mafagel zamater, because one mater cannot be mefagel the other mater. Okay. Says Gemara, why are you saying a second case about the two bezichnim you had in mind with one spoon to burn the second spoon of keteris the next day? We already learned the same thing we just said it by the mincha and the levina. That if he had in mind by the mincha for the levina, there are two components of being mater, and we said it doesn't become pigul because one mefagel mater sabah. It says a mater mefagel samater. So why do you have to say again the similar case by two spoons? Says I would have thought Rabbi Yosi levina. The reason of Rabbi Yosi by levina that it shouldn't be a din of pigul mishum lav mina the mincha, because by a mincha and levina, why will I say a mater mefagel samater? Because the mincha and levina are two different meaning. The mincha is flour and levina is spices. So I would say while he had in mind by the flour to burn levina after a lot of time, that doesn't make it pigul because they're two different meaning. But by the two spoons of spices, they are of the same meaning. I would have thought that it makes it pigul one another. Kamash Malon comes the Gemara and teaches no, that each spoon is its own component and ein mate mefagel samate. Okay. Could we then say time of Yosef, the reason of Yosef by Levina, by when he had in mind to burn Levina after a lot of time, La Mishum is not because La Mina the Minchahi. You're saying it has nothing to do because it's not of its own kind. Right. That's not that you want to say that's not the reason that it's not going to become pigul. That aim mater mefagel samate, because they're two different minutes. You want to say it has nothing to do because they are two separate minutes. But he says, I'll prove to you it does. The Chacham said, Ma shinsa min hazava. Why is by a mincha? How is a mincha different than by a carbon? When he shechted the carbon for the blood, he had in mind for the fats to burn the fats the next day. There you said it is going to be pigul. Said hazava because hazava. This is very simple because in the Mishnah we said it's different than the mincha because it's all one. The meat, the fats, the blood, it's all of one gulf. So it's one min. But a levina is not for the mincha. So you see, we do take in consideration if it's part of the same kind or not. Says you got it all wrong. What do we mean that the levina is not part of the mincha? It means that it doesn't hold back. Meaning, through burning the kmitza, it's not like it's not be'ikov. The lav kehechad be'akalu kaimis l'shirayim. We don't say just like the kaimitz is ma'akal l'shirayim. The command the lav misket kaimitz le'misach shirayim that calls my you didn't burn the kaimitz l'shirayim are not able to be eaten. Hachanami, so too the kaimitz that the levina should be also to be burned before the kmitza. We don't say that. He's telling you, listen, What I meant to say, the dam, when it comes to blood, the blood is the only thing that's matter the whole carbon. If you spray the blood, then you can eat the meat, and you can burn the emun around the mizbeach. All comes from one place, one source, spraying the blood. But when it comes to mincha, no, there are two different components. There is the flour that the kmitza, that is fistful that you have to burn, and then there's levena you have to burn. So he says, look, there, it's not totally in the kmitza that the shrine should become mutter. You can be makta the levena first. He's saying that the kmitza is not the part that's being, the kmitza part is not the part that's being mattered only. The levena part is also, could go first. So the kmitza wasn't mattered the levena. The levena could be mattered the kmitza. It's the same thing. Either one could come first, but by the dam, the only thing that's mattered all of it is the blood. So that's why it's all, it means one source that's mattered everything. But by the kmitza levena, it's not one source. That you're not limited to do the kmitza first and not the levena. You can do the levena before the kmitza. So it's whatever Rabbanan. Rabbanan, ki aminan ein matam nefagal samata. When do we say one pigel cannot be matter the other? Hanimili heichad elodiku b'chad mana. Only if they're in two separate kalim. Like he brings down by the shvuis, the carbon. It says you have to bring two sheep. Yeah. You have to shech both sheep. Okay, and then you can eat. Then they're both kosher when you shecht it. So if you want, he brings down over here. You brought here. He says 2 kvasim were brought on that says on a chagash shavuos, together with the shtei halechem. The shtei halechem were eaten by the kahanim, but they weren't mutter till after he did the avodah of the kvasim. So the kvasim were, the sheep were the ones that were matter to eat the bread. Each keves is the one that's matter itself. When he finished, each one is matter the eating of the meat of that. When you shech that keves, that meat of that keves that you shech, you can eat it. So from the one who shechs one of the kvasim on with the intention to eat the second one the next day, that's not going to be pigel. If I shech the one keves, right? Having one the second keves, I'm going to eat after the allotted time. That's not pigel. Okay? So he says, but when were these words said? When the
it's not
bread,
why? Because it's allowed to be eaten at a later time?
It's not. But he took one keves and he shechted it.
Okay.
And what did he shecht? He had in mind to eat it after the allotted time.
Okay. And why is that not pigel?
Because they're two kvasim, they're two separate components that are
So
matter the allotted.
you have to have in mind to eat both
Both of them, yes.
Okay.
But that's only if they were in two separate kalim. What does he mean, two separate kalim? So he says, after the shechita, if one of the two died, that's a separate case. No, I don't want to get into that. So, if he shechted one of the kvasim with the intention to eat the next one tomorrow, they're both kosher. The Chachamim who argue on Rabbi Yossi Ameida by 2 kvasim, that the machshava of one keves won't help to be mefagel the other keves. Okay, that's all if it's in two separate kelim. But when both of the matirim were in one keli, like the kaimitz and the levena of the mincha were in one vessel, right? Even though each component is mated the other, kichad dami. Then it's considered as one. Amar Rabbi Yana. We're starting from Amar Rabbi Yana. Likud al-levena. Amar Rabbi Yana. Rabbi Yana said, look al-levena, the gathering of the levena from, you had to take off the spices off the sailors in order that the sailors itself should be burned separately. And someone who did it, it was done by a zar instead of a kohen. Puzzle, it's going to be puzzle. In fact, one of my time now. What's the reason? Because part of the Havida was, if you remember, the Kmitza corresponds to the Shechita.
Right.
Then you had the Kabbalah, receiving the Kmitza in a Kli Shares. That's the Kabbalah. Halacha is bringing it towards the Mizbeach, and the burning is like spraying the blood. So what happened over here? Removing the spices off the flour has to be removed. The flour is not allowed to have any spices when you burn the Kmitza on the Mizbeach. So he says that's why if a Zar did that part, because that's one of the 4 Avedas, making it faster towards the burning. So he considers it as halacha. Kasava halacha shelo iberego shma halacha. He says even wringing something without your feet is considered as halacha. Okay, halacha b'zah psula. And if a zah does one of these the avodah of halacha, it's possible. So too we learned in a Mishnah in the previous page. Exactly. This is the rule. Kol hakenis ben nisan, es hakenis ben kli. Whoever does a kmitza of the mincha, and he places the kmitza in the kli sharis, and he brings it to the mizbeach, and he burns it on the mizbeach. Meaning, if any of these 4 avodas were done with the intention to eat or burn the mincha outside its time, then it's pigul. The whole reason why machshavas pigul helped by these 4 avodas, because it's the ikra, the main avodas of a mincha. So it's going to be shleim koimetz. I understand koimetz is similar to shchita. How? Because by the behema you're taking the dam, a part of the behema, the blood of it, and here you're taking a part of the mincha, a part of it away. Melech nami, melech, he's bringing the koimetz of the mincha to burn. Hainu melech. Here also he brings the blood of the mizbeach from the animal to the mizbeach. That's halacha. Makter, burning the koimetz. Hainu zayik. That's the same thing as spraying the blood. Ella noisim bekli maikavet. But when he places the kmitza part into the kli, what did he do? Elan mishum the dami lekabbalah. He's going to say it's similar to receiving the blood from the animal. Says you want to be dummy? Is it similar? Hasim and Mela, by receiving the blood from the animal, the blood is coming out on its own. Hacha, by the kmitza, kashakal rami. He takes out a piece from the mincha. He's putting it into the clay. Nothing's coming on its own, like by the blood of the animals. How could you compare? Since if you don't do it, nothing's going to happen. You have to do it. So since it has to be done, it's considered as a very important aveda. Therefore, we have to say it's similar to receiving the blood. So too, by removing the levena, since the carbon is not kosher unless you remove the levena, so it has to be done. So it's considered as a very important aveda. Therefore, we consider it as the avodah of halacha, a very chashuv avodah, and therefore, if a zar does it, it's possible. Doesn't want to lie. You can't answer that, even though it's not similar. You can say it's considered as one of the avodas. La'olam, you have to say it has to be similar. And really, I'm going to say the dam in the Kabbalah. It is similar to Kabbalah by receiving the blood. And when he places the mincha into the kli, is similar to receiving the blood. Are you going to say by the blood it comes automatically on its own? And over here, what do we say? He has to take it and place it in the kli. Says you want to look into it. To avoid both both the kli is inserting into the flour kedusha, and just like the kli is inserting into the dam kedusha. So who cares if the blood came in automatically? The kli sharis inserts in that whatever is in it to make it holy, whether it's blood or whether it's the mincha. So they're similar. How it came to the kli? Who cares?